last set of stuff before your first exam, which is on Wednesday. Yeah, you keep saying Friday like it's going to be true. Okay, when I was scheduling the exam, it was I could either do it the day before Valentine's or the day after. I had high hopes that you were going to have a date and it was going to be good, and the next morning you would not want to be studying for an exam. What? For your single approach. Look, man, you're an attractive man. I thought for sure in the month since the class started you would find someone. Slim pickings. Oh. All right. I mean, there's no way I can get out of that sentence and be like, no, there are a lot of attractive. No, not y'all, but in other classes that I don't teach. You know. All right, so we've been looking. We're trying to wrap up and look at some features that societies use to encourage conformity. What we're going to see after the exam on Friday is how far conformity will go. So what I'll do today is give one final way that societies try and encourage conformity, and in this way they give insufficient justification for behaviors. So we're going to look at some ways that societies do this technique. I don't know why. Oh, there it is. Research suggests that one way that behavior is maintained is that the behavior becomes its own justification. And a way to see this is if you've ever said the phrase, that's just what we do, or that's just the way it is. Or if you've ever tried to defend something and your explanation becomes, oh, you're seeing this in action. What happens is that people sometimes, if you don't give a strong enough external justification, develop an internal one. And you often will hear this when people say, well, that's just the way things are, or, well, it's illegal. Like, some of my friends will say things about certain behaviors like, should you run a stop sign? Well, it's illegal. Really? At 4 in the morning, no one's around, you're in the middle of nowhere, that still shouldn't do it? We're going to see some of this in action. The classic study of this comes from Friedman, and it's a very nice little study, and I like what he shows. And what he did was he wanted to see if he could prevent some kids from playing with a really interesting toy. Right? So you have your nieces, you have your nephews over, and you have things in your house they're going to immediately want to play with, like Xbox or Wii or PlayStation. Is there any new console that I'm missing? There's the 3 big ones still. What? The new PS. Oh man, see, I haven't played video games since Mario Brothers on Nintendo. So, all right. So he showed them 5 toys, right? So he had a cheap so you don't have to write down a list of toys, but basically they all kind of were not very fun. A cheap plastic submarine, a baseball glove, an unloaded toy rifle, a Tonka tractor, or an expensive robot, something like this, right? Right? Which one are the kids going to gravitate towards? The robot, right? So you want to stop the kids from playing with the robot. And you can think of this study this way. There are 2 things you could do if you're like, this is an heirloom robot, don't touch the robot, whatever. There's 2 things you could try. One is you could give a very harsh external justification. Right? If you touch the robot, I will spank you. Right? Or your parents may have tried this strategy not with robots, but perhaps with alcohol, perhaps with drugs, staying out late. Right? They're like, if I ever see you with a cigarette, what's going to happen? What? Not you. Like, if I ever see you with a cigarette, I'm going to ask for one. Right? No, like I had some friends growing up, they got caught smoking, and their parents made them go sit in a room and smoke an entire, no, they had to do it like, it was like 4 of them, so they had to do it in a carton between them. You know, it's like, oh, right? So that is a very, very strong external justification, right? So one group, Friedman is going to give a very strong justification. That's how you got to think about this, though. It's like, and you can think of it with your parents giving you, if you break curfew, I'm going, you're on restriction, right? Or lot of
Get that
people.
word.
I'm sorry. Time out. Right? So in his study, what he did was he said to them, do not play with a robot. It is wrong to play with a robot. If you play with a robot, I'm going to be angry. Right? You know, you can imagine this. Right? Well, there's another way that you could try this. And in this, you do not give a strong external justification. You give a weak justification. So in this one, he's like, I'm going to be angry at you if you do this. You can also give a weak one. And all he said was, it's wrong to play with a robot. Right? So the robots are there because it's wrong to play with the robot. This is going to be the question. It's fairly easy to figure out what's going to happen while Friedman's there. The kids aren't going to play with the robot, right? No surprise. Like, you know, when your parents are around, you're probably not smoking cigarettes, you're probably not drinking beer or whatever. But what happens when Friedman is gone? What? Well, he said it's wrong to play with the robot. So which group is most likely to play with the robot when Friedman is gone, when he's not present? So let's think about this. So in the strong external justification group, right? No surprise, Friedman's there, they don't play with it. Which group is more likely when Friedman is absent? You can do both or equally likely, because I've tricked y'all before and have no problems doing it. Which group when Friedman is absent is most likely to play with the robot?
How old are the kids?
These were like 5. Let's go. 5. So Friedman's absent. Which group is most likely? The one given the strong, the one given the weak. Or they're both equally likely. Let's see how y'all do. 3, 2, 1. Let's see if I actually want to show up today. No. So I come over here.
Oh, there it is.
There it is. All right, so y'all are pretty much guessing at chance. One person doesn't know how to use clickers. All right, we got to sort of see what happened here. This is sort of an interesting study. Now, you're going to get the full notes online, so I'm just going to tell you how this is going to turn out as a thought experiment. And you think about this with your parents, and think about you've now come to college for the first time. If your parents said to you, if I ever see you with a cigarette, you come to college, your parents aren't here. What might you do? What? Yeah, you might get cigarettes because you see it as rebelling or whatever. But with a strong justification, the only reason I'm not doing it is not just they told you not to, but they will catch you and you will be on restriction. I hate that word. So that's what you're going to get. But what about in this condition? In the weak condition?
It's
Well,
wrong and everybody sees it's wrong.
what?
It's wrong and everybody sees it's wrong, not just your parents.
Well, maybe everyone does see it as wrong. But I'll tell you how this is going to play out. It's going to be sort of an intriguing thing. So I'll tell you what he did. A couple weeks later, one of his assistants comes back. The kids don't know it's an assistant, and the assistants have the kids draw this, and they have to copy whatever they see. They basically are doing filler work. It basically was like, oh, we're going to get you to draw. This is actually a test for some form of psychopathy, if I remember correctly. It's whether or not the kids can draw something. I don't remember what it's a test for. On any account, she goes, oh, while I'm grading your test, you can play with some of the toys left over there. Now, the strong justification group looks around and goes, Friedman's not here. Love this robot. What about the weak justification group? They're just told it's wrong to play with the robot, not told why. What might they do?
They probably won't play with it because they were taught that it's because it's wrong, not just because you're going to get in trouble.
Yeah, so it's not even just that they might play with it. What? Go ahead.
Or they might ask if they figure it out.
They might ask. But there's something a little more intriguing went on here.
Do they actually like ponder like why it is that it's wrong? Like rather than like do they start to like question why it's wrong?
They not question it because that has like sort of a double meaning, but the kids who were just told it is wrong to play with a robot invented their own reason why it was wrong. They actually invented a justification for this. And what we're most interested in here is over here that compared to the mild threat group, the severe threat group was much more likely to play with this robot. But that's not the most intriguing thing. The most intriguing thing was the boys in the mild threat group rated the robot as less attractive. They actually said the robot wasn't any fun. So if your parents want to prevent you from drinking, should they say, if I see you with a beer, I'm yanking you out of school? Or just say, what? Yeah, drinking it, or one of my friends used to always, when she didn't want me to do something, she'd just go, that's so unclassy. Yeah, that's how she would try to prevent me from doing some behavior. She'd go, it's so unclassy when you do that. So I have to invent I'm like, well, why is it unclassy? Well, I guess it is kind of classless, but gosh, it's very effective. Right? You invent your own reason. Now, to sort of see this in action, we can think of some, I'll give you sort of the classic sociology non-experiment, but nonetheless is the classic example. We know this is true, that creating this weak external justification leads the people to make one. And you can think about this when you think of various traditions. Like, why do we say bless you after people sneeze, but not after they pass gas? Right? When someone passes gas, we don't go, bless you. That doesn't happen. But why do we do it when someone sneezes? Anyone know? So demons won't get into you, right? The belief used to be that after you sneeze, the demons are like, woohoo, free entry, and it would go up your nose. Right? Now, I suspect today we don't believe that's true, but it is. If I were to establish a class rule that you cannot say bless you when someone sneezes, right? Even though none of us think demons are going to jump into someone's body, y'all would probably revolt, right? Now, and if I were to ask you, well, why do you say bless you? You would just go, what? Everyone does it. That's what you do. They sneezed. You say bless you. Like, it's its own justification. Like, why do you say bless you? I've often thought of that as a sick, twisted thing to do for a semester to go, if you say bless you when someone sneezes. What? Now, probably people would revolt. It's like, what are some other traditions that we still do that, like there's some tradition about where the male is supposed to walk when going down a road?
On the side of the car.
On the side, what?
On the side of the car.
Yeah, because the old idea used to be that if they came by and
the horse and buggies will throw up the water and all that kind of stuff.
And we're supposed to take it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Right? Right? So that's another tradition. If we go, well, why are we doing it? That would be one there. Let's think of some other ones. I'm trying to think of other traditions that we do that I keep trying to use Valentine's in all of mine for some reason. It's like, why do we give red roses for Valentine's? What?
The red roses are meant to mean a little. It's
Yeah.
Each rose has a different yellow is sympathy and yellow's friendship, white empathy, some crap like that.
There's a whole
White's friendship.
Oh, you're sitting the wrong way. You're like, I gave you white roses, sympathy, friendship. I know they're all supposed to, but what if your partner hates roses? Would it make more sense to give him or her or both carnations or tulips? Yeah. Or not. I'll give you the classic. This is this came from sociology. There is an experiment underlying this example, but the experiment doesn't at all go with the way it's told told in sociology classes, but it's a cute story to illustrate this particular point. What they did is they said, okay, imagine we're going to bring 5 monkeys into a room. So here they all are, you know, and then we're going to put some bananas on top of a ladder. And what we're going to do, the first monkey that tries to go for the bananas, we're going to squirt them with a water gun. Right? Is that right? Do we squirt that monkey? No, that's not what we do. My bad. The first monkey that tries for this, we squirt all the other monkeys. That's right. Got to get it right. So this monkey here is like, hey, bananas, while they're climbing up, we squirt all of the other ones with a water gun. What do you think is going to happen the second time a monkey tries to go up there?
They're gonna stop the banana.
No, they're gonna keep him from going up there.
Yeah, the other ones are going to keep them from going up there, right? Because it's like, if a monkey tries to go up there, you know, they get squirted. Well, then what they did is they started replacing monkeys. So new monkey comes in, new monkey sees bananas, like, why isn't anybody going for the bananas? That monkey's going to try. What do you think the other monkeys are going to do?
Tackle.
Pull them down. They're going to be like, oh, you know, you don't go. And the way the experiment actually didn't work this way, but the way it's sort of told is, what would happen if we replaced all of the monkeys? Like one by one.
Right? They keep doing it just because, like, eventually they don't know why you can't go get the bananas, but they know they're not supposed to go get those bananas.
Yeah, it's like, well, why are we trying for the bananas? Well, I don't know. Like, you don't go. You don't go. No one eats the bananas, man. No one touches the bananas. Well, there are other examples of this. There are actually real-world analogs to this. I'll give you one. Let's say you're on a bus. None of us ride buses because we're not living in New York City. But let's say we're riding a bus or a train, and you're tired, your legs are sore. Should you ask someone for their seat?
No.
What do you think? I'll let y'all vote. I mean, obviously you don't want to do it anonymously. Right? I'm tired, I'm irritable. Should I ask someone for their seat? A is yes, B is no. Let's just do this real fast. Should I ask you for your
I
seat?
think kind of depends on sex, doesn't it?
It's you. It's you.
Okay.
Like, you're tired. You're like, it's full. Right? Just you. 3, 2, 1. Let's see what y'all think. No. Why not? So one answer for the why not could be no one will give me their seat, right? What?
I just can't believe I'm the only person in this room that would ask someone for this.
They're anonymous, man. So why would you do it?
I've done it before, and people have given me their
Yeah. See, here's what's actually interesting. If you actually ask people for their seat, wait here. Did I ever come in? So what? I'm drawing a blank. Who did this? Milgram. Milgram did this particular experiment, and one thought is if I just ask people for their seat, they're going to go no. So he had one particular experiment where all he had his researchers do, and they said this was really tough for them. They actually didn't like this experiment doing this one. They just said all we're going to do is just go up to someone and go, "Can I have your seat?" No justification whatsoever. And what he found is that about 50-some-odd% actually gave up their seat, and a certain percentage of others slid over. In other words, it works. So the explanation for not doing this can't be that it doesn't work. So why not do it? I'm tired, my feet hurt.
I don't know. I just feel weird asking for it. Like, I don't feel like.
I understand you feel weird asking for it, but you feel weird asking for it is our culture's socialization of you, where you have learned that rule, you just don't do it. You've been given an insufficient justification that you've now went, it's just wrong.
But you're putting the other person, I think the only reason why they would give it, like 50% would give it, is because you put them in an awkward position.
I don't care.
Right.
You know, my comfort will assuage my guilt. You're right, I am putting them into an awkward situation, but, you know, I'm also sitting down.
But I mean, why? I think it has to do with the fact that they were there first.
Well, that's our cultural rule. They were there first. I mean, they could say no, and people did. You're right, they do feel so. Now,
It's between both. It's one or the other is going to feel awkward at the end.
I'm not going to feel awkward at the end, right? No, but you can think, but if okay, we're both in New York, we've gone, like, it's a packed train, we're both tired, we're never gonna see these people again. Do I really care that they feel awkward?
Me personally, coming from New York, yes.
Well, then,
You
yeah.
personally
The
come from
only
New
people
York,
that actually
no.
sees are handicapped people, old people, or someone who's pregnant. So,
Well then, and me. I'll be like, I'm tired. I mean, I remember I gave this lecture a couple years ago, and one of my students was like, they wanted a parking spot outside, and they came in the next class, and was like, this person had just pulled into the space, and I went, do you ever have your space? And they got in their car and drove off, and gave her the space. I mean, other places where this works, like, all right, if I were to say to you, as your homework assignment, you have to go ask people for $1.
Oh my god, this one guy at work has no problem doing that every day.
So, okay,
Every single.
Seriously.
well, you're just positively reinforcing by giving $1.
No.
Right? Now, you go, it's awkward to do that, but from his point of view, guess what he gets every single day?
$1. You will put in $1 every day.
Free money.
Yeah, it's free money, right? You feel awkward, but that soda's gonna make me feel a lot better. Right? All right, so,
Right.
what?
you're a materialist, yeah.
I am a well-refreshed sitting materialist. But from one perspective, yes, it might make them feel awkward, but, it works. I mean, you gotta decide which one more important to you. Soda or making people feel awkward. And like her coworker has made his choice. What about if I give it just trivial justification, right? Like, I might say, may I have your seat because I'd like to sit down. What effect, what?
Kind of circular.
I know, it is circular. What effect do you think that's gonna have on people's,
You're gonna be less likely to do that.
okay, we're gonna see.
Oh.
Let's vote. What do you think's gonna happen? I go, can I have your seat because I'd like to sit down? Do you think it's gonna increase, decrease, or it's gonna stay the same in terms of who's gonna give me their seat? Y'all just like, y'all need to just chill out. Oh really? That made me feel awkward. All y'all saying it's closed, but it didn't bother y'all. We can get this turned on. I think I just closed it. There it goes. All right. Now I feel really awkward. All right, let's go. I don't know why it's doing this today. Let's go. 5, 4, 3. It's going like it's saying it's on, and then it's like not on. 3, 2. Random numbers showing up. Y'all's modal response though is decrease. Well, it's sort of intriguing. What research y'all's modal response is acting up is decrease. Is that people really don't pay attention to justifications. It had a little bit of effect on it, but really not that much. It did decrease. We have to define what decrease means. But you would think that someone giving the justification of, can I have your seat because I like to sit down, would be circular. And yet people heard the justification, and what people have done lots of research like this. Like the classic study was people were in line for a copier machine. Right, like the library, I know what these things are. Because I'm about to get to the age where people are going to go copier machine. You had to actually physically hold something down. And they would go, can I cut in front of you to copy because I need to copy? People are just like, all right. What is going to happen in this condition? The person stood up there and they're like, I'm going to ask this person for their seat. What do you think is going to happen? Since it's going slow, what do you think is going to happen in that condition to agreement? And most importantly for the test, well, I'm not going to do it as a quiz. We're going to guess though?
Yeah.
What do you think? No?
What was I gonna guess for what you just asked?
Yeah. So you overhear me saying I'm going to ask you for I'm going to say third person. I'm going to ask her for her seat. What effect do you think that's going to have? Is it going to make it lower, higher?
So you're talking to someone else and I hear you.
Yeah. I'm going to go ask her for $1.
I think you'd be less likely.
Okay. Why?
Because they haven't taken notice of you, so you're not in an obligatory situation.
taking notice, I'm not under obligatory.
I don't feel obligated because I haven't been put into the situation directly.
But then I ask you,
Oh,
hey, I'm gonna ask her for $1. Can I have $1? That's the situation.
oh,
Are you more or less likely in this condition? And why? Yeah.
I would say less likely because they have like a couple of moments to come up with an excuse as to why they can't. I know when
I
I'm
would
walking
agree.
through 5 Points and I see someone, I'm like, they're gonna ask me for $1. I know. I'm already prepared. Something in my head as to why they're not gonna get one.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's they're less, because what it suggests is, to get to your point about being uncomfortable, what it suggests is that this does make people uncomfortable, they don't know how to respond, and so the immediate way to respond is just to sort of do what's been asked. But if they have a second to come up with an excuse or an answer, they're less likely. You gonna say the same, or?
No, I was gonna say something like, when you're like soliciting donations or something, if you solicit a donation in front of people, like, hey, will you give to my child's whatever, that's putting, oh, you're not gonna donate to, like.
So now you have another,
That's another way, I mean, this is obviously a completely different thing, but I think in that situation, cause it's been shown that people are more likely to give if.
you have a slightly different phenomenon going
Right.
on there. It would be more like if everybody else had given up their seat,
Right.
then you would feel bad. Like if it's a bunch of pregnant women who are getting on,
Right.
and I've given up my seat, you get up, then it's like, you want to be the only one who doesn't give up your seat for the pregnant girl. But in this one, so what you're doing there is more conformity, right? Because everyone else is doing the behavior. That's a good strategy, though.
But it's also, even if they have it, even if I come up just to you, but there's all these people around, will you do something that's considered a more, right or moral in our society, then yes, do it. Even though you may only have $5 on you and this is your last $5.
Yeah.
Well, I've got these people looking at me and I don't wanna.
So what's the variable, and so we talked about variables, what's the variable that differs from that, from the seat?
Guilt.
No, there's a different variable. Guilt's a good guess, but there's a different variable. Is there the moral right to give up the seat? No, our nudge, our bias is first come, first serve.
Possession and ownership.
Yeah, kind of thing. But in this situation, I don't know how it became the cultural norm, but the cultural norm is to buy Girl Scout cookies. Even if you don't eat things.
I have no problem with crushing their dreams.
What?
I have no problem crushing their dreams. Alright, on the no justification, do you think it could be like with the kids, if you don't give a justification, they come up with one in their head as to why you need their seat?
That's possible that they might go, oh, they must have some problem, because otherwise people would not ask for my seat, unless, they were crippled, unless whatever. So it is possible that they do come up with, that they do invent one.
Is there a study or something that shows like how much interaction or how much individuals need to be doing the conformity in order for someone to actually engage in the conformity?
We're going to do conformity after the exam.
Oh, okay.
I just want to introduce that conformity is a factor. I'm going to show in some really interesting ways how strong conformity works. I just showed, up to the first exam was just like, okay, let's just see how this factor plays out. We're going to do that for the exam. I'll just show you how the overheard one, much less. Much less. And people think because it gives you time to think. But in your cookie example, whatever, it's the social norm. Remember, because we talked about how nudges, the biases nudge us in certain ways, and I don't know how Girl Scouts did it. Like the bias is you buy cookies. But I agree with Russ. I'm like, I hate Girl Scout cookies. So Arby's good, Girl Scout cookies. It's weird. Oh man. So you see this whenever you think to yourself there's just certain behaviors that one just doesn't do. It's very often your culture has given an insufficient justification and you don't know that. So, all right. Woo. All right, so what we have up to this first exam. Wow, a lot on this exam. Right? I know. Man. Don't sound so excited. Would you like a review?
personality class.
Oh, your personality professor must be awful as well. All right. Oh, it's like, I'm sorry you have a test of personality too. It's almost like you're taking 4 classes and you have tests all the way on. Man. I mean, 6 classes. Well, because every professor, what we do is we go, okay, there are 45 class days. We're going to have 3 exams, so divided, around
Yeah,
15.
and always, so we have like 4 tests in 1 week.
Oh, we also hate y'all. We get together and go,
Claims it.
Screw 'em.
So you get to-
yes, we do.
Come on one day.
Yeah, let's get them all on the same day.
But that happens.
No, it's because we're all sort of doing the same sort of like, if we're going to do 3 exams and you want it to be divided evenly up, we all go 45 days, divide by 3, 15. So this is the 15th, actually this will be the 14th day. On the 14th day he reviewed. All right. It's going to be on your exam. All right, so the first set of notes, what we did was a precursor to social psychology, a lot of experimental methods. So in the experimental methods, we looked at Mills' methods of induction, we looked at addition, subtraction, concatenate variation, and we said, okay, we want to get a feel for how to start looking at social behavior. And remember, we said we're going to take this big perspective first. So to get at yours, like, what variables matter with conformity? It's like, at first, I'm just going to look at the gross scale. Like, at a gross scale, here's what's likely to happen. And then if I want to do a little bit more, I can follow it up with different manipulations. So we said we're going to start big and go small. This starting big and going small, what do we decide to call that? Atomistic perspective. So what I would say is, in the aggregate, if all you do is just go up to people and say, hey, can I, blah, not everyone's going to say yes. But more will than you think. So that's the first one here. So we're going to start with this atomist perspective where we start with big and then we're going to narrow down. Within the atomistic perspective, we said, well, a lot of social behaviors tend to follow what? There's a very special thing that most behaviors seem to mirror. A pattern, if you will. Yeah, this bell curve. We said, okay, we're going to start atomistically, big perspective, moving in small. And at a gross level, many behaviors tend to follow a bell curve. And the bell curve is, for us in this class, defined by 2 basic parameters. One parameter is the mean, and then one parameter is what?
Standard deviation.
Yeah, standard deviation, the spread, however you want to think of this. So there's going to be a mean trait for a culture, group, etc., and then a spread. And which would be better, to have a large spread or a small spread for us? A small spread, right? Because that's going to allow us to predict better. So we said, okay, well, this is what cultures look like in the aggregate. We're going to take atomistic perspective, look at the big, and then work small. And then we said, okay, we're going to first use Mills' methods of induction to come up with what might be the spread central tendency of a particular culture. Mills' methods. So we said you have the method of addition, subtraction, and concatenate variations. So what it's going to allow us to do, if we're trying to see across cultures what the tendency, principle, and so forth is, we're going to look for places where a trait is the only thing in common. That's the method of addition. So we're going to say, well, in all cultures where X is the case, we find Y, right? And our class example was in every culture where Andrew appears to be irritable. So, but we might find in every culture that has a single member district polarity type structure, there are fewer political parties. Right? What's subtraction, the method of subtraction? take away something, right? Concatenate variation, another word for concatenate variations is what?
Correlation.
Yeah, correlation. So concatenate variations are really correlations. So what we're looking at here is we're going to look at how two things vary with each other. And with these, what we found with Mill, you can have a positive correlation, two things go up together. You could have a negative correlation, one goes up, the other goes down. Or none, no correlation. So we want to go, like we found that in general there is a negative correlation with income and religion across cultures. In general, there's a positive correlation between hours of studying and test grades. Just making a plug for studying. All right, so this is with naturally occurring data. What is the real shift from naturally occurring data to experimental data? What's going to be the real major conceptual shift?
Manipulate.
Yeah, we're going to manipulate. And we said, okay, for experimental data, the only really shift is we're going to actively manipulate. Instead of just looking out and observing that the females who do X tend to get Y, or the males that tend to do Z don't get whatever, we're going to actively manipulate. And this is going to require that we come up with a good sample. Right, so we need to get an appropriate sample of whatever our population is. Right? And we got to define our variables. And then manipulate them. So we're going to define our variables and then actively manipulate them. And we looked at some examples involving source credibility, and we looked at the Good Samaritan study, right? All right, so we also said with naturally occurring data and experimental data, we need to know some statistics, right? For this class, you don't have to compute any statistics, but there are 4 that turn out to come in handy often, one of which is obviously correlations. If I have 2 groups, what am I going to tend to use? Or that are continuous. That I have 2 groups that are on a continuous variable, I'm going to do t-test. If I have more than 2, I'm going to tend to use the box thing.
Punnett square.
Punnett square. Chi-square is one of them. Chi-square is if I have typically with discrete variables like male, female. The class example was male, female, more jealous about emotion, more jealous about sex.
Factorial Nova.
Yeah. With more than 2 groups or with more than 2 levels of a variable, I would know when I would use each one of these statistics. So, as a general thing, if I have more than 2 groups or more than 2 levels of a variable, I'm going to use my notebook. Alright, so finished up that set of notes, and then we went to the culture notes. Okay, we're going to look at a bunch of factors with culture, and so we get a definition of culture. Culture is all of those traits that help our material and non-material survival in a culture. It's symbols, it's rules, it's mores, it's what food you eat, it's what silverware or non-silverware you use. It's all of those things that help with your material and non-material life in a culture. So I go, well, we have symbols, we have mores, values, laws, beliefs. So, okay, we have this definition of culture, and after the definition of culture, and like example after example, where we said your culture helps you go, what is my life course? Like, How do I see my life going? That's going to be part of what your culture is going to do. And we said, what? Just, yeah.
Wasn't there something specific that you called it like on the quiz?
Life script.
Yeah.
Life script.
So yeah, your culture's, we got the definition, you know, but it's everything. It's going to be food. You know, what we're going to do in the second 2/3 of this course is I'm going to go, you as a female, our culture distinctly says that you as a woman should do certain things. Right? So, we'll call it a life script. There should be a certain life script that you follow. Like high school, college, married, kids, whatever. But, you know, all of these things. So we're doing the second 2/3 is we're going to go, what does our life course say? I'm sorry, what does our culture say about gender? What does it say about age, status, and so forth? And then we, in this particular section on culture, we finished the preambulatory stuff, and then we spent a great deal of time going, one of the things that cultures encourage us to do is conform. And what we're going to see after the first exam is how far cultures take this. Well, we looked at conformity in this large sense. We looked at reasons to conform. Right? There's some economic justifications, social status justifications. We also, within this conformity, we said, well, often the minority culture tends to conform to the majority culture by taking some of its traits. And we called that something special. Syncretism. So we talked about how syncretism is one type of conformity where you take, minority culture tends to take the larger one, and we saw examples of syncretism in the Jewish religion. We saw examples from the Christian religion as well within syncretism. And today we said, well, one of the ways which society tries to encourage conformity is to give minimal justification. I think that's enough for one test. Yeah, I had to just come up with it off the top of my head. I know how much it is. And I had to do it for the learning class just prior to this. What? Minimal justification. All right, I'll see. I would expect about 50, so you know what to look for. I expect about 50 questions and 5 short answers, graded by your talented TA.